There is an unspoken weight that many carry, a silent storm that rages within while the world outside remains oblivious. To speak of depression is to attempt to describe a landscape that defies ordinary language, a place where the familiar contours of life become alien and hostile. It is a gut-wrenching loneliness that can persist even in a crowded room, a near-constant anxiety that hums beneath the surface of every moment. For some, it is not a storm but a suffocating stillness, a profound numbness where one feels nothing at all, a state of being checked out from the very life one is supposed to be living. It is the feeling of being trapped at the bottom of a deep, dark pit, able to hear the sounds of life far above but utterly unseen and unreachable. The world loses its color, its flavor, its joy. It is, as one writer described, to have lost all my mirth, to see the world as nothing more than a foul and pestilent congregation of vapors. This inner world is often a place of profound solitude. It is a voice in the mind that whispers relentlessly of isolation, convincing you that you are alone, that you cannot be loved, that no one truly wants you around, and worst of all, that no one could possibly understand. This is not mere sadness. Sadness is a natural response to loss, a healthy grief that moves and changes. Depression, in its depths, is a state of being where the very foundation of your life feels as if it has fallen away, leaving nothing to live for. It is the experience of watching a comedy and finding no joy in it, a condition known as anhedonia, where the capacity for pleasure itself seems to have been extinguished. It is a ball and chain shackled to the ankle, a constant weight that makes every step an act of monumental effort, making escape feel impossible. This state is often accompanied by a merciless inner critic, a voice of relentless self-castigation that floods the mind with feelings of worthlessness and excessive, objectless guilt. Life becomes bloodless, pulseless, and yet present enough to allow a suffocating horror and pain. All bearings are lost in this storm of murk, and a weary paralysis takes hold, throttling psychic energy down to zero. It is a state of being where the mind turns agonizingly inward, becoming a dark chamber of morbid, confused, and ruminative thought. If this landscape feels familiar, if this weight is one you recognize, then know that you are not alone in this experience. And know, too, that there is a path that does not require you to fight this darkness, to wage war against your own mind. There is an ancient wisdom, a profound and compassionate science of the mind that offers a different way. It is a path that begins not with resistance, but with a courageous and gentle turning towards our pain. It invites us to become an archaeologist of our own suffering, to excavate its hidden roots with curiosity and care. This path suggests that the very keys to our freedom are not found by escaping the prison, but are hidden within its walls. It is a journey of transformation, one that promises not a life without sorrow, but the discovery of an unshakable peace and a quiet, resilient joy that can hold all of life's experiences in a tender embrace. This is an invitation to turn on a light, to find your way not out, but through, and to come home to the luminous, spacious nature of your own heart. The journey toward healing in any tradition begins with a clear and honest diagnosis. Before a remedy can be prescribed, the nature of the ailment must be fully understood. In the Buddhist tradition, this diagnostic process is one of profound compassion, for it begins by reframing the intense personal pain of depression not as an individual failing or a moral defect, but as a fundamental and shared aspect of the human condition. The Buddha, often called the Great Physician, laid out his core teachings in the form of a medical framework known as the Four Noble Truths. A clear identification of the symptom, an investigation into its cause, a prognosis that healing is possible, and a detailed prescription for the cure. This approach immediately lifts the burden of shame and self-blame, allowing us to look at our suffering with the objective curiosity of a doctor examining a patient, rather than the harsh judgment of a critic condemning a flaw. The first and most foundational of these truths, the starting point for the entire path, is a simple, direct, and courageous acknowledgement of reality. There is suffering in life. This is the diagnosis of the universal symptom. The Pali word used by the Buddha is dukkha. While often translated as suffering, its meaning is far more nuanced and encompassing. It points not only to overt physical and mental pain, but also to a more subtle, pervasive sense of dissatisfaction, stress, unease, and unsatisfactoriness that is woven into the fabric of our existence as conditioned beings. It is the inherent instability and unreliability of a life that is constantly changing. By beginning here, the Buddha normalizes our experience. He tells us that what we are feeling is not a sign that we are broken, but a sign that we are human. To make this diagnosis explicit, the Buddha detailed the various forms that dukkha takes, creating a list of symptoms that resonates deeply with the lived experience of depression. He taught that birth is suffering, aging is suffering, illness is suffering, death is suffering. These are the unavoidable physical realities of our lives, sources of pain and anxiety that we cannot ultimately control. He then moved to the psychological and emotional realms, stating that union with what is displeasing is suffering, separation from what is pleasing is suffering. This speaks directly to the pain of loss, the grief of bereavement, the frustration of being trapped in unwanted circumstances, and the sorrow of losing what we hold dear, all common triggers and components of a depressive episode. Finally, he summarized the condition in its broadest sense. Not to get what one wants is suffering. In brief, the 5 aggregates subject to clinging are suffering. This points to the constant friction between our desires and the reality of a world that does not always conform to them, a core feature of the frustration and helplessness felt in depression. This diagnostic framework accomplishes something profoundly therapeutic from the very outset. The modern experience of depression is so often entangled with a secondary layer of suffering, the guilt and shame of feeling the way we do. We construct a narrative of personal pathology, believing, there is something fundamentally wrong with me. The Buddha's first noble truth dismantles this narrative. It is a universal statement about the nature of existence itself, not a judgment on an individual's character. By presenting his path as a medical model, symptom, cause, prognosis, and cure, the Buddha removes the moral charge from the equation. We do not blame a person for having a fever. We diagnose its cause and offer a remedy. In the same way, the Buddhist path does not blame us for our dukkha. It simply acknowledges its presence and offers a way to understand and transform it. Therefore, the first task on this ancient path to healing is not to fight our suffering, not to suppress it, and not to escape it. The first task, as the Buddha taught, is to fully understand it. This is a radical invitation. It asks us to turn towards the very feelings we have spent our lives running from, the emptiness, the hopelessness, the anxiety, the worthlessness, and to look at them with a clear, steady, and compassionate attention. As the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh reminds us, we must be attentive to our suffering to see it clearly. This act of courageous seeing is the first step out of the darkness. It is the moment the patient agrees to the diagnosis, creating the necessary foundation upon which the entire process of healing can be built. It is an empowering reframe that shifts our self-perception from "I am broken" to "I am experiencing a universal and understandable condition, and there is a path that leads to its healing." Once the symptom of dukkha has been acknowledged, the great physician turns his diagnostic lens to its underlying cause. The second noble truth presents a radical and profound etiology of our suffering. It posits that our pain does not arise from the external events of our lives, the losses, the disappointments, the illnesses, but from our internal reaction to them. The root cause of our dissatisfaction, the Buddha taught, is tanha, a Pali word that translates as thirst, craving, longing, or greed. It is the insatiable burning thirst of the mind for things to be other than they are. It is the relentless wanting, grasping, and clinging that fuels the cycle of suffering. While many factors contribute to dukkha, tanha is considered the most palpable and immediate cause, the engine that drives the wheel of our discontent. This craving is not a simple desire for pleasant things. It is a deep-seated psychological force that manifests in 3 primary forms. Understanding these 3 facets of tanha allows us to see its pervasive influence in every corner of our lives, especially within the landscape of depression. The first is kama tanha, the craving for sensual pleasures. This is the most obvious form of thirst, the desire for pleasant sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and physical sensations. It extends beyond the purely physical, to include the craving for pleasant mental experiences, such as the attachment to ideas, opinions, beliefs, and ideals. It is the mind's constant search for the next hit of pleasure, the next distraction, the next experience that will momentarily soothe our underlying unease. The second is bhavatana, the craving for existence or becoming. This is a more subtle and deeply egoic form of thirst. It is the desire to be something, to establish and solidify a particular identity, and to perpetuate that existence eternally. It is the craving for recognition, for status, for a life story that feels significant and permanent. It is the deep-seated belief that if we can just become the right kind of person, successful, loved, respected, enlightened, our suffering will end. This craving is rooted in the mistaken view of eternalism, the deep-seated hope that we can build a solid, lasting self that is immune to the ravages of change. The third is vibhava tanha, the craving for non-existence or annihilation. This is the shadow side of the second craving. It is the desperate desire to not experience something unpleasant, a painful feeling, a difficult situation, a traumatic memory. It is the urge to push away, to destroy, to annihilate what is causing us pain. In its most extreme form, this craving for non-existence manifests as suicidal ideation, a core danger in severe depression. It is the ultimate expression of aversion, the belief that the only way to end the pain is to end existence itself. This craving is rooted in the mistaken view of annihilationism, the belief that we can simply cease to be and that this will be the end of our suffering. This 2,500-year-old diagnosis of tanha is not an archaic philosophical concept. It is a startlingly precise psychological model that illuminates the very mechanisms of modern discontent. The world we have constructed in the 21st century often seems like a vast and intricate machine designed specifically to stimulate and amplify these three forms of craving, creating a perfect storm for the proliferation of anxiety and depression. Our modern consumer culture is the institutionalization of kamatan. It relentlessly fosters a mindset where happiness and self-worth are inextricably tied to material possessions and the acquisition of goods and services. Advertisements are not merely selling products, they are selling promises of fulfillment, status, and joy. This creates what psychologists call the hedonic treadmill. The fleeting pleasure derived from a new purchase quickly fades, leaving us dissatisfied and craving the next thing in a perpetual cycle of wanting and disappointment. This relentless pursuit often comes at the cost of immense financial stress and debt-related anxiety, further fueling our dukkha. If consumerism is the engine of kamatana, then modern social media is a supercharger for both kamatana and bhavatana. Platforms like Instagram and Facebook are powerful instruments of comparison, constantly presenting us with curated, airbrushed highlight reels of other people's lives. This fuels profound feelings of inadequacy about our own lives, our appearance, and our accomplishments, leading to envy and dissatisfaction. This environment is the perfect breeding ground for the fear of missing out, FOMO, a state of anxiety rooted in the belief that others are having more fun and living better lives. FOMO drives a compulsive, addiction-like engagement with these platforms as we seek the validation of likes and comments to bolster a fragile, externally defined sense of self, a clear manifestation of the craving to be something, bhavatana. This constant connectivity, paradoxically, often leads to a deeper sense of isolation and loneliness, as virtual interactions replace the genuine, face-to-face contact that is essential for human mental health. Finally, the cognitive dimension of tanha can be seen in the modern psychological trait of entitlement. Defined as an exaggerated feeling of deservingness and superiority, entitlement is the belief that the world owes us what we want, often without corresponding effort. This mindset creates a chronic vulnerability to unmet expectations. When reality inevitably fails to align with these inflated demands, the result is frustration, anger, and disappointment. This emotional distress leads to what researchers call a perpetual loop of distress. The entitled individual blames others for their unhappiness, while simultaneously reassuring themselves of their own specialness to soothe the pain, which only reinforces the entitled worldview and restarts the cycle. This is a perfect modern description of the Buddhist cycle of craving leading to suffering, which in turn leads to more craving. Thus, The Buddha's ancient diagnosis reveals a profound truth about our contemporary condition. The personal, internal struggle with depression is not happening in a vacuum. It is being constantly fed and exacerbated by a cultural and technological superstructure that is built upon the very psychological mechanism the Buddha identified as the root of all suffering. Understanding this connection is a crucial step. It allows us to see that our discontent is not just a personal problem, but a response to a world that is actively designed to keep us thirsty. The Buddhist path, therefore, is not merely a set of techniques for managing internal states. It is a radical counter-paradigm to the very foundations of our modern culture of dissatisfaction. To fully grasp the mechanics of Tanha and understand how it perpetuates the cycle of depression, we must delve deeper into the Buddha's psychological model of the mind. At the very center of the wheel of life, driving its endless, painful spinning, are three symbolic creatures: a rooster, a snake, and a pig. These represent what are known as the three poisons, or the three unwholesome roots, akusala mula: greed, raga; aversion, dosa; and ignorance, moha or avijja. These are not abstract moral failings, but a precise and interlocking cognitive behavioral model of the engine that powers our suffering. They are the fundamental defilements that pollute the mind, distort our perception of reality, and give rise to all other unwholesome states. Greed, represented by the rooster, is the energy of passion, attachment, and clinging. It is the manifestation of kamatana and bhavatana, the relentless pulling of pleasant experiences toward a perceived self. It is the desire to attract and hold on to anything that we believe will bring us pleasure or enhance our sense of identity. In the context of a relationship, a wholesome desire for closeness can morph into a toxic, clinging demand driven by attachment. In the throes of depression, greed can manifest as a desperate, obsessive attachment to fleeting moments of relief, a frantic search for distraction, or a rigid and painful clinging to an idealized vision of how life should be. It is the mind that says, "I need this to be happy," or "I cannot live without that." This clinging creates immense suffering because, as we will see, the objects of our attachment are inherently impermanent. Aversion, represented by the snake, is the energy of hatred, anger, and resistance. It is the manifestation of vibhavatana, the violent pushing away of unpleasant experiences. It encompasses a wide spectrum of negative emotions, from subtle irritation and resentment to outright rage and ill will. Aversion is perhaps the most visceral experience of depression. It is an intense resistance to the painful feelings themselves, a deep-seated anger at oneself for feeling this way, and a pervasive irritability and intolerance toward others. The mind becomes a battlefield where we are at war with our own experience, constantly trying to reject and annihilate the parts of ourselves we find unbearable. This internal conflict is exhausting and only serves to deepen the grooves of our suffering. Ignorance, represented by the pig, is the foundational poison, the root delusion from which the other two spring. It is the fundamental misperception of reality, a lack of clear seeing that allows greed and aversion to run rampant. This is not a lack of intellectual knowledge, but a deep experiential blindness to the true nature of existence. Specifically, ignorance is the failure to see the three marks of existence. It is the delusion that fleeting pleasures can bring lasting happiness, which fuels greed. It is the delusion that we can successfully push away pain and control the uncontrollable, which fuels aversion. Most fundamentally, it is the delusion that our depressive state is a permanent reality, anicca, that the flawed self being attacked by our inner critic is a solid and real entity, anatta, and that we are fundamentally separate and isolated from the world, paticca samuppada. This ignorance is the cognitive fog that keeps us trapped in the cycle. These three poisons do not operate independently. They form a self-perpetuating, vicious cycle that lies at the very heart of the depressive experience. The process begins with ignorance, a distorted view of reality where negative thoughts are believed to be absolute truths. The self is perceived as inherently and permanently flawed, and the future appears utterly hopeless. This fundamental misunderstanding fuels aversion, a powerful and painful pushing away of the present emotional reality. We think, "I hate feeling this way. This anxiety is unbearable. I must get rid of this emptiness." The intense suffering created by this internal resistance then leads to greed, a desperate search for an escape. The mind clings to anything that promises temporary relief, be it a substance, a distraction, a relationship, or simply the fantasy of a future where the pain is gone. When these objects of our clinging inevitably fail to provide lasting satisfaction, because all things are impermanent, the resulting disappointment and despair reinforce the original negative worldview of ignorance. The mind concludes, "See, nothing works. I really am hopeless." And so the cycle begins again, each rotation carving the neural pathways of depression deeper into our being. The Buddhist path offers a way to purify the mind of these toxins. The antidote is not to engage in a violent struggle to suppress them, which would only be another form of aversion. Instead, the first step is to bring the poisons up from the unconscious into the light of non-judgmental awareness, a practice known as mindfulness. By simply observing these patterns of greed, aversion, and ignorance as they arise in the mind, we begin to see them for what they are: impersonal, conditioned processes, not the core of our being. We come to understand how much pain these patterns cause, both to ourselves and to others. This clear seeing naturally gives rise to the motivation to change. We can then consciously and systematically cultivate their wholesome opposites. We meet greed with generosity, contentment, and gratitude. We meet aversion with loving kindness, compassion, and forgiveness. And we meet ignorance with wisdom, clarity, and insight. This is the alchemical work of the path, transforming the very poisons that cause our suffering into the medicine that heals us. At the heart of the depressive experience lies a profound sense of stagnation, a terrifying conviction that the present suffering is not a temporary state, but a permanent reality. Hopelessness, a core symptom of depression, is the cognitive belief that I will always feel this way, that the gray, joyless landscape of the present moment stretches unbroken into an infinite future. This belief in permanence is a heavy anchor that moors us in the harbor of despair, making any movement toward healing seem futile. The Buddhist teaching of anicca, or impermanence, is a sharp and liberating blade that cuts this anchor rope. It is a direct, experiential antidote to the poison of hopelessness, shifting our perspective from a fear of change to a deep and abiding trust in it as the fundamental, inescapable nature of reality. Anicca is the first of the three marks of existence, a core insight of the Buddhist teaching. It declares that all conditioned phenomena, everything that arises from causes and conditions, which is to say, everything in our experience, are in a constant state of flux. Nothing is static. From the vast movements of galaxies to the subtle vibrations of subatomic particles, from the cells in our bodies to the thoughts in our minds, everything is arising, changing, and passing away in every moment. As one text describes, things never persist in the same way, but they are vanishing and dissolving from moment to moment. This universal law of change is the source of both our suffering and our potential for liberation. The suffering, or dukkha, does not arise from the fact of change itself, but from our deep-seated resistance to it. Our minds, under the influence of ignorance, are conditioned to seek stability and permanence where none can be found. We develop a deep craving, an ikka, for things to be reliable and lasting, and a state of nikka. We suffer profoundly when we must separate from people and experiences we love, and we suffer when we are forced to be with people and circumstances we dislike. The friction between our desire for permanence and the reality of impermanence is the very definition of suffering. If one does not get what one craves or likes, that leads to suffering. However, this same law contains the seed of our freedom. If everything is impermanent, then our suffering too is impermanent. Our painful moods, our destructive thought patterns, our heavy states of despair, these are all conditioned phenomena. They have arisen due to causes, and they will inevitably change and pass away. The popular phrase, "this too shall pass," is not a hopeful platitude, but a precise statement of universal law. When this truth is not just understood intellectually, but is seen directly and repeatedly through mindful observation, it systematically dismantles the cognitive foundation of hopelessness. The mind can no longer sustain the belief that this will last forever, when its direct experience, moment after moment, is one of constant flux. The liberating insight shifts from a desperate hope that the pain might pass to a calm certainty that everything is already passing. The path to this insight is not one of philosophical debate, but of direct, embodied investigation. The practice of anicca involves turning the lens of mindfulness toward the ever-changing stream of our own experience. We can begin with the body. By bringing awareness to our physical form, we can notice the constant subtle shifts, the rise and fall of the breath, the beating of the heart, the tingling, warmth, and pressure that are never the same from one moment to the next. We can reflect on the deeper reality of our biology, the trillions of cells that are constantly living, dividing, and dying, ensuring that the body we have now is not the same body we had 7 years ago, or even 7 minutes ago. From the body, we can turn our attention to the mind itself. Here, the truth of impermanence is starkly and immediately available. We can simply sit and watch the mental parade. Thoughts, memories, plans, and fantasies arise from nowhere, linger for a moment, and then dissolve back into nothingness. Emotions, joy, sadness, anger, fear, well up, crest like waves, and then recede. Moods shift and change throughout the day. By observing this mental weather without clinging to the pleasant or resisting the unpleasant, we learn an invaluable lesson. We are not the weather. We are the sky in which the weather occurs. This practice directly counters the depressive tendency to fuse with a negative mood, to believe, I am depressed. Instead, we begin to see a state of depression is present, and like all states, it is impermanent. This creates a space of awareness around the mood, loosening its suffocating grip. Finally, we can extend our contemplation of anicca to the world around us. We can reflect on our possessions, our car, our phone, our house, and visualize their inevitable decay, seeing them as they are now and as they will one day be, old, faded, broken, and returned to the elements. We can contemplate our relationships, recognizing that every person we know was born and will one day die, and that the nature of our connection is always in a state of evolution. This is not a morbid exercise intended to induce sadness. On the contrary, a profound appreciation for the preciousness of the present moment is often its result. When we truly understand that nothing lasts forever, we are more likely to cherish what we have right now, to be fully present for the simple, fleeting joys of life, without the anxious need to cling to them or the worry that they will end. To make this practice tangible, one can engage in a guided meditation on impermanence. The process begins by stabilizing the mind, perhaps by focusing on the steady, rhythmic flow of the breath. Once a degree of calm is established, the awareness can be gently guided through the different domains of experience. First, the body, feeling the aliveness and constant change within its very cells. Then the mind, watching thoughts and feelings appear and disappear like bubbles in water. Then the outer world, contemplating the transient nature of all things, from the smallest object to the vastest mountain range. Throughout this process, when a clear, visceral sense of impermanence arises, one can let go of the analytical process and simply rest in that intangible feeling of insight, holding the attention firmly on the direct realization of change itself. This practice, repeated over time, trains the mind to relax its grip, to let go of its resistance, and to learn to dance with the beautiful, heartbreaking, and liberating rhythm of change that is the very pulse of life. Within the dark chamber of depression, the most persistent and tormenting presence is the self. The narrative of suffering is almost always intensely personal. It is not just that there is pain, it is that I am in pain. It is not that a mistake was made, it is that I am a failure. The relentless inner critic, a hallmark of the depressive mind, launches its merciless attacks on a perceived entity, a solid, separate, and fundamentally flawed self. Feelings of worthlessness, guilt, and shame all presuppose the existence of this central character, this I who is the subject of all this misery. The Buddhist teaching of anatta, variously translated as no self, not self, or selflessness, is a direct and profound challenge to this core assumption. It is perhaps the most radical and misunderstood of the Buddhist teachings, and it holds the key to the ultimate unburdening of the mind. Anatta is the third of the three marks of existence, and it logically follows from the truth of impermanence, anicca. The teaching does not claim that we do not exist. Rather, it asserts that there is no permanent, unchanging, independent entity or soul at the core of our being that we can identify as a self. If everything is in a constant state of flux, then this must also apply to that which we call I. What we experience as a self is not a static noun, but a dynamic verb. It is a process, a temporary confluence of ever-changing physical and mental components, which in Buddhist psychology are categorized into the 5 skandhas, or aggregates: form, the physical body; feeling, pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral sensations; perception, the recognition and labeling of sensory input; mental formations, thoughts, intentions, emotions, habits; and consciousness, the basic awareness of the other 4. Our sense of I is simply a convenient label we apply to this constantly shifting stream of phenomena, much like we apply the label river to a continuous flow of water. The river is never the same from one moment to the next, and yet we call it by a single name. So it is with the self. This understanding stands in stark contrast to many Western psychological approaches that focus on building a strong sense of self or cultivating high self-esteem. While these can be beneficial, they still operate within the framework of a reified self that needs to be defended, improved, or validated. The path of anatta transcends this framework entirely. It is also crucial to distinguish anatta from the unhealthy and destructive pattern of silencing the self, a psychological concept describing how individuals, particularly women, may suppress their own needs and feelings in relationships to maintain intimacy or safety, a pattern highly correlated with depression. This harmful form of selflessness involves creating a division within the mind, an idealized good self that pleases others, and a repressed bad self that has its own needs and resentments. Anatta, on the other hand, is not about suppressing a self. It is about seeing through the illusion that there was ever a solid, separate self to begin with. The former leads to inner conflict and depression. The latter leads to liberation and a spontaneous, unconflicted compassion that flows from the realization of our interconnectedness. The therapeutic power of this insight for depression is immense. The entire architecture of depressive rumination, the self-criticism, the guilt, the feelings of worthlessness, is built upon the unquestioned belief in a solid, independent I who is the target of these attacks. The inner critic needs a victim. The teaching of anatta systematically deconstructs this victim. When we begin to investigate our experience through the lens of anatta, we see that both the harsh, judging thoughts and the painful feelings of being judged are simply impersonal, transient mental events. They are clouds passing through the sky of awareness. When we see this clearly, the inner critic loses its target. The attacks have nowhere to land. The practice of anatta is, again, one of mindful investigation rather than intellectual assent. It involves a subtle but powerful shift in perception and language. Instead of identifying with a thought or feeling by saying, "I am angry" or "I am worthless," we can learn to observe the experience more objectively. There is a feeling of anger arising in the body and mind, or the thought, "I am worthless," has appeared. This simple reframing creates psychological distance, a space between awareness and the mental event. It is the practice of decentering, of disidentifying from the contents of our consciousness. We stop being the actor in the drama of our depression and become the audience, watching the play unfold with a compassionate and discerning eye. The goal, as one teacher puts it, is not to slay the mind or annihilate the ego, but to work with it. The 5 aggregates, the very stuff of our conditioned self, are not enemies to be destroyed. They are the fodder, the gold with which we work. The challenge is to use our senses and our mind to see through our conditioned reactions, to untangle ourselves from the hooks and triggers that pull us into habitual patterns of suffering. By looking with an open heart at whatever arises, simply noting it, and allowing it to flow on without grasping or resisting, we align ourselves with the true nature of things as they are. This unburdening of the self is the deepest freedom offered by the Buddhist path. When the heavy, painful story of me and my depression begins to dissolve, what is left is not a void, but a spacious, luminous awareness. It is a state of profound ease, relieved of the exhausting project of defending, fixing, and perpetuating a self that was never solid in the first place. It is the discovery that our true nature is not this small, flawed, isolated self, but the boundless, interconnected, and ever-changing process of life itself. Having diagnosed the nature of our suffering, dukkha, identified its root cause in craving, tanha, and understood the liberating truths of impermanence, anicca, and no self, anatta, we now arrive at the practical heart of the Buddhist path, the prescription for healing. This prescription is not a single pill, but a holistic training of the mind, and its foundational skill, the very first tool we must learn to use, is mindfulness, sati. Mindfulness is the capacity to pay attention to the present moment, on purpose, without judgment. It is the anchor that can hold us steady in the turbulent seas of depression, a reliable refuge from the relentless storms of rumination about the past and anxiety about the future. The simplest and most universally accessible gateway to mindfulness is the practice of coming home to the breath. The breath is a remarkable object of meditation. It is always with us, from the moment of birth to the moment of death. It is a process that is both voluntary and involuntary, a bridge between our conscious and unconscious minds. And most importantly for our purposes, the breath is always happening now. You cannot breathe in the past and you cannot breathe in the future. By simply bringing our full attention to the physical sensations of the in-breath and the out-breath, we gently but firmly pull our awareness out of the chaotic world of thought and ground it in the tangible reality of the present moment. This simple act is the beginning of reclaiming our minds from the grip of depression. The mind in a state of depression or anxiety is characterized by what psychologists call mental time travel. It is almost entirely preoccupied with the past or the future. It engages in rumination, the repetitive and intrusive churning over of past mistakes, regrets, and hurts. Or it engages in worry, a chain of negative and catastrophic thinking about what might go wrong in the future. These mental habits are not just symptoms of depression. They are the very processes that maintain and deepen it. Mindfulness acts as a direct, competing response to these destructive habits. It is impossible to be fully engrossed in ruminating about the past while also being fully present with the sensation of the breath. By repeatedly and gently redirecting our attention back to the present moment, each time the mind wanders, we are actively retraining our brain, weakening the old neural pathways of worry and rumination, and strengthening new pathways of present moment awareness. This ancient practice has found a powerful modern application in the clinically proven treatment of mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, MBCT, an approach developed specifically to prevent the relapse of recurrent depression. While traditional cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, teaches people to actively challenge and dispute their negative thoughts, this can be incredibly difficult for someone in the depths of depression, often feeling like an argument they can't win. MBCT takes a different approach. It does not ask us to change our thoughts, but to change our relationship to our thoughts. The core skill it cultivates is known as decentering. Through mindfulness meditation, we learn to step back and observe our thoughts and feelings as they arise and pass away, viewing them as transient mental events rather than as objective facts or the core of our identity. We come to the profound realization that you are not your thought patterns. A wave of sadness can pass through the mind without it becoming a tsunami of despair, because we are no longer fused with it. We are the ocean, not the wave. This transformative psychological shift is mirrored by measurable changes in the brain's structure and function. The neuroscience of mindfulness reveals that this practice is a form of active brain training. Consistent meditation has been shown to increase the density of gray matter in the prefrontal cortex, an area of the brain crucial for higher-order functions like meta-awareness, emotional regulation, and conscious decision-making. At the same time, it can reduce the size and activity of the amygdala, the brain's primitive fear center, which is often hyperactive in anxiety and depression. Furthermore, research has shown that mindfulness practice can lead to an uncoupling of the medial prefrontal cortex, involved in self-referential me-centered thinking, and the insula, involved in processing bodily sensations. This uncoupling may be the neurological basis for decentering. It weakens the link that causes a negative bodily feeling to automatically trigger a cascade of negative, self-related thoughts, thus breaking the vicious cycle of rumination. In essence, mindfulness is not a passive or mystical state. It is an active and pragmatic skill that fundamentally alters the brain's default mode of operation. The depressed brain is often stuck in its default mode network, DMN, the system responsible for mind-wandering, self-focused thought and ruminating about the past and future. Mindfulness practice, by contrast, deliberately engages the task-positive network, TPN, which is activated when we are focused on a present moment, sensory-based task like feeling the breath. Each time we guide our attention back to the breath, we are performing a mental repetition, like lifting a weight at the gym. Over time, this exercise strengthens the brain's ability to disengage from the toxic loops of the DMN and to rest in the calm, clear space of present moment awareness. It is a direct, bottom-up intervention that changes the very hardware on which the destructive software of depressive thinking runs, creating the neurological foundation for a new and more peaceful way of being. Mindfulness provides the clear, steady awareness necessary to see our suffering without being consumed by it. It creates a space between ourselves and our pain. But awareness alone, if practiced with a cold, clinical detachment, can sometimes feel insufficient. To truly heal the deep wounds of depression, the feelings of worthlessness, shame, and self-loathing, we need to fill that space with warmth. This is the role of compassion, karuna, and loving kindness, metta. If mindfulness is the clear light that illuminates the dark corners of the mind, compassion is the gentle warmth that thaws what has been frozen in fear and self-hatred. It is the essential complement to mindfulness, the alchemical ingredient that transforms the act of seeing our pain into the act of healing it. The internal landscape of depression is often dominated by a harsh and merciless inner critic. This internal voice is a source of constant torment, attacking us for our perceived flaws and failures and telling us we are not good enough. For decades, many psychological and cultural models have implicitly suggested that this self-criticism is a necessary motivator for improvement. However, a growing body of research powerfully refutes this notion, showing that self-criticism is far more likely to lead to anxiety, avoidance, and deeper depression. Self-compassion, in contrast, has been shown to be a much more powerful and sustainable source of motivation and resilience. Dr. Kristin Neff, a pioneering researcher in this field, has developed a comprehensive model of self-compassion that consists of 3 core components. These 3 elements work together to create a state of warm and connected presence in the face of suffering. Self-kindness versus self-judgment. This is the practice of treating ourselves with the same warmth, care, and understanding that we would offer to a dear friend who is struggling. Instead of attacking ourselves with harsh criticism when we fail or feel inadequate, we learn to actively soothe and comfort ourselves. Common humanity versus isolation. This involves recognizing that suffering and personal inadequacy are part of the shared human experience. Depression often brings with it a profound sense of isolation, the feeling that I am the only one who feels this way. The perspective of common humanity reminds us that imperfection is universal. We are not alone in our struggles. They connect us to all of humanity. Mindfulness versus over-identification. This is the balanced, aware state we explored in the previous chapter. It involves observing our negative thoughts and emotions without suppressing them, but also without getting lost in them. Mindfulness allows us to acknowledge our pain without being swept away by it, creating the clear space needed for self-kindness and common humanity to arise. To bring this practice into moments of acute difficulty, the meditation teacher Tara Brach has developed a powerful and accessible mindfulness tool called RAIN. The acronym stands for 4 steps that guide us from a state of reactive turmoil to one of compassionate presence. R, recognize. The first step is simply to recognize what is happening internally. We pause and mentally name the predominant feeling: anxiety, shame, sadness, judgment. A, allow. The second step is to allow the experience to be there, just as it is. We let go of the struggle to fix or change it, giving it permission to exist. This is not agreement or resignation, but a gentle dropping of our resistance to reality. I, investigate. With a sense of gentle, non-judgmental curiosity, we turn our attention inward. We might ask, what does this feel like in my body? Or what does this vulnerable part of me most need right now? The investigation is embodied and kind, not analytical. In nurture. This is the active step of self-compassion. Having connected with our vulnerability, we now consciously offer ourselves a gesture of care. This could be placing a hand on our heart, whispering a soothing phrase like, "It's okay, sweetheart," or "I'm here for you," or simply holding our own pain in a warm, tender awareness. This final step is what actively counters the habit of self-aversion and rewires the brain for self-kindness. The formal systematic cultivation of this compassionate heart is known as metta bhavana, or loving kindness meditation. This practice is a direct and powerful antidote to the feelings of worthlessness, hostility, and self-loathing that are so common in depression. The meditation traditionally unfolds in stages. We begin by offering phrases of loving kindness to ourselves, such as, "May I be safe, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I live with ease." This can often be the most difficult step for those with a strong inner critic, but it is the most essential. From there, we gradually extend these same wishes outward, first to a benefactor or dear friend, then to a neutral person, then to a difficult person or enemy, and finally boundlessly to all living beings everywhere. The benefits of this practice are profound and well documented. Research has shown that regular loving-kindness meditation, LKM, significantly increases positive effect, emotions like joy, gratitude, contentment, and hope, while decreasing negative affect. It has been shown to reduce symptoms of depression and anxiety, and is now being integrated into clinical settings as a powerful complement to therapies like CBT. It directly addresses anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure, by actively cultivating the capacity for positive, heart-centered emotions. Ultimately, self-compassion and loving kindness are not about trying to force ourselves to feel positive in order to paper over our pain. They are about fundamentally changing our response to pain. The primary suffering of life, loss, sickness, disappointment, is unavoidable. But the vast majority of our mental anguish comes from the secondary suffering we add on top of it: the judgment, the shame, the isolation, the resistance. Mindfulness allows us to see the primary pain with clarity. Compassion stops us from adding the secondary layer of suffering. Instead of meeting our pain with aversion and criticism, we learn to meet it with warmth and care. This radical shift in our internal relationship soothes the nervous system, rewires the brain, and stops the vicious cycle of self-attack that keeps depression in place. It is the discovery that the warmth of our own heart is the most powerful healing agent we possess. In the landscape of the human heart, there is perhaps no quality more transformative and yet more overlooked than gratitude. In the modern discourse on well-being, gratitude is often presented as a simple feel-good exercise, a matter of counting one's blessings to foster a more positive outlook. While this is beneficial, the Buddhist understanding of gratitude goes infinitely deeper. It is not merely an emotional practice, but a profound wisdom practice, a master key that unlocks the door to authentic, resilient joy. It is presented not as an obligation, but as the natural and effortless expression of a mind that sees reality clearly. For those struggling with the narrowed, self-focused world of depression, the cultivation of gratitude is a powerful path back to a sense of connection, wonder, and inner wealth. At its core, gratitude is a practice and a skill, a muscle that we need to develop. In the midst of suffering, it is easy to become fixated on what is wrong, what is painful, and what is lacking. This focus, while understandable, can extinguish our inner light of hope. Gratitude, therefore, is described as a light that we want to protect, a conscious choice to also acknowledge what is good and what is supportive, thereby giving us the strength to navigate our difficulties. The deepest and most unshakable foundation for Buddhist gratitude is the wisdom of Pakkasamuppada, or interdependent origination. This is the understanding that nothing exists in isolation. Everything in the universe arises in dependence upon a vast and intricate web of causes and conditions. The self that feels so painfully isolated in depression is, in reality, a momentary expression of this infinite web. Your existence right now depends on the oxygen produced by countless plants, the sunlight from a star 93 million miles away, the farmers who grew your food, the ancestors who passed down your genes, and the complex web of society that provides your shelter and safety. When this interconnectedness, or interbeing, is seen clearly, the illusion of the separate, independent self begins to dissolve, and a profound sense of being held and supported by the universe can arise. This is why the practice of gratitude, particularly in the tradition of Thich Nhat Hanh, begins with the most mundane and overlooked conditions of our existence. The 5 contemplations recited before a meal are a perfect example of this profound practice in action. The first contemplation states, "This food is a gift of the earth, the sky, numerous living beings, and much hard and loving work." This simple sentence transforms the routine act of eating into a deep meditation on our radical dependence on the entire cosmos. Suddenly, the food on our plate is no longer a mere commodity. It is an ambassador of the cosmos, a tangible link to the sun, the rain, the soil, the plants, and the labor of countless beings. By mindfully coming home to the simple miracle of the breath, the functioning of our body, and the nourishment we receive, we touch the reality of interbeing, and from this touching, gratitude naturally flowers. This virtue is so central to the Buddhist path that it is woven into its most ancient teaching stories, the Jataka tales, which recount the Buddha's previous lives. In the Alanachita Jataka, an elephant is wounded by a splinter and healed by a group of carpenters. Overwhelmed with gratitude, the elephant dedicates the rest of his life to serving them, pulling logs and helping with their work. When he grows old, he brings his own magnificent white son to take his place, ensuring the carpenters continue to be cared for. This chain of gratitude extends for generations, showing how the act of repaying kindness creates powerful bonds of mutual care and flourishing. Conversely, the Ruru Deer Jataka tells the story of the Bodhisattva born as a golden deer who saves a drowning man. The man vows never to reveal the deer's location, but later, tempted by a great reward, he betrays his savior to the king's hunters. The story serves as a stark warning about the corrupting power of greed and the profound moral failure of ingratitude. Together, these stories illustrate that gratitude, katanyu, knowing what has been done for you, and the reciprocation of kindness, kadavedi, are marks of a person of integrity and a foundation for a wholesome society. This ancient wisdom is now being powerfully validated by modern neuroscience. The practice of gratitude is not just a pleasant mental exercise, it physically rewires the brain for happiness. When we consciously practice gratitude, the brain releases a cascade of beneficial neurochemicals, including dopamine, associated with reward and pleasure, and serotonin, a key mood regulator, which act as natural antidepressants. Simultaneously, it can reduce levels of the stress hormone cortisol, calming the body's fight-or-flight response. Brain imaging studies have shown that feelings of gratitude activate regions of the brain associated with morality, reward, and empathy, particularly in the medial prefrontal cortex. Remarkably, these studies suggest that regular gratitude practice can create lasting changes in the brain, heightening its sensitivity to future experiences of gratitude and effectively priming us to notice more good in our lives. This reveals the true genius of the Buddhist approach. It bypasses the common pitfall of toxic positivity, where individuals are pressured to feel grateful, often leading to feelings of guilt and inauthenticity when they cannot overcome their genuine pain. The Buddhist path does not begin by demanding the feeling of gratitude. It begins with the wisdom of seeing things as they truly are, interconnected and interdependent. When we mindfully contemplate the countless conditions that support our existence in this very moment, the intellectual understanding of Paticcasamuppada transforms into a felt sense of being supported. From this authentic, wisdom-based realization, the emotion of gratitude arises naturally, not as an act of will, but as a clear-seeing response to the miracle of being alive. It is a joy rooted not in wishful thinking, but in the very nature of reality itself. On the path of healing, there comes a point where we move beyond simply managing our pain to fundamentally transforming our relationship with it. This requires a profound act of courage, a willingness to turn and face the very heart of our suffering not with fear, but with an open and compassionate embrace. The Tibetan Buddhist practice of Tonglen, which means giving and taking or sending and receiving, is one of the most powerful and advanced methods for cultivating this courageous heart. It is a radical practice that directly reverses our most deeply ingrained habit, the instinct to avoid pain and seek pleasure. For a mind conditioned by depression, where the primary impulse is to push away, suppress, or escape from painful feelings, Tonglen is a revolutionary act of alchemy. It teaches us to use the very poison of our suffering as the medicine for our own and others' liberation. The logic of Tonglen is simple yet profound. We are conditioned to breathe in what feels good and breathe out or push away what feels bad. Tonglen intentionally reverses this flow. On the in-breath, we consciously and compassionately take in the pain and suffering, both our own and that of others. On the out-breath, we generously send out relief, peace, happiness, and well-being. This practice is a direct training in dissolving the hard boundaries of the ego, which is built on the foundation of my pleasure and my pain. By willingly taking on the suffering of others and giving away our own happiness, we begin to dismantle the self-centeredness that lies at the root of our distress. The practice of Tonglen typically unfolds in several stages. Flashing on absolute bodhicitta, the practice begins not with the suffering, but with a moment of stillness. We are invited to rest the mind briefly in its natural state of openness, clarity, and spaciousness. This initial step is crucial as it connects us with a dimension of our being that is larger than our pain. It establishes a vast, compassionate container in which the difficult work of the practice can safely unfold. Working with texture, we then begin to synchronize the practice with the breath, using visualization to give texture to the exchange. On the in-breath, we visualize taking in suffering as something hot, dark, heavy, and claustrophobic, like thick black smoke. We breathe it in through every pore of our body, fully accepting its reality. On the out-breath, we visualize sending out relief as something cool, bright, light, and spacious, like pure white light, extending it out into the world. Focusing on a personal situation, the practice is then made specific and personal. We begin with our own immediate suffering. If we are feeling a wave of hopelessness, anxiety, or self-hatred, we breathe that specific pain directly into our hearts. We don't analyze it or judge it. We simply take it in with full acceptance. On the out-breath, we send ourselves whatever we most need: peace, self-acceptance, courage, or relief. We are learning to be present for our own suffering with unconditional kindness. Expanding compassion to others. Once we have established a connection with our own pain, we expand the circle of compassion. We bring to mind a friend or loved one who is suffering, and on the in-breath, we take on their pain as if to relieve them of it. On the out-breath, we send them all of our joy, health, and peace. Gradually, we extend this practice further and further to neutral people we may have seen during the day, to difficult people or even enemies who have harmed us, and finally, to all beings everywhere who are experiencing the same kind of suffering. This practice is the ultimate embodiment of the teaching that suffering itself can be our greatest teacher. By willingly moving toward pain instead of away from it, we discover an incredible truth. Our heart is much larger than we imagined. It has the capacity to hold immense suffering without being destroyed by it. In fact, it is the very contact with suffering that awakens our bodhicitta, our compassionate heart. This transforms our perspective entirely. Adversity is no longer seen as a personal affliction, but as a precious opportunity to cultivate patience, love, and courage. Those who cause us harm are no longer just adversaries. They become our spiritual teachers, providing the resistance against which the muscle of our compassion can grow strong. The ultimate expression of this compassionate ideal is found in the Jataka tale of the starving tigress. In a previous life, the Buddha-to-be was walking in a forest when he came upon a tigress so weakened by starvation that she was about to devour her own newborn cubs. Shaken by a profound and overwhelming compassion, the Bodhisattva saw this not as a tragedy to be lamented, but as a precious opportunity to be of benefit. Reflecting that his body was ultimately a source of suffering and that the wise rejoice in using it for the good of others, he willingly gave his own life, casting himself down from a cliff to provide food for the tigress, thereby saving both her and her cubs from a terrible fate. This story, while extreme, illustrates the boundless compassion and fearlessness that the practice of Tonglen is designed to cultivate. In a very real sense, Tonglen can be understood as a form of exposure therapy for the heart. Depression and anxiety are maintained by experiential avoidance, the constant effort to suppress, control, or escape from unwanted thoughts, feelings, and sensations. Tonglen is the exact opposite of avoidance. It is a deliberate, voluntary, and repeated act of making contact with the very experiences we fear most, but it reframes this exposure as a profound act of love and courage. By breathing in the hot, heavy, polluted smoke of suffering, we are teaching our nervous system that it is possible to hold great pain within a larger space of compassion, and that this act does not destroy us, but in fact expands and strengthens us. It is a practice that transforms our relationship with pain from one of terror and aversion to one of profound intimacy, fearlessness, and care. The journey out of the isolating depths of depression is not a path that can or should be walked alone. While the internal practices of mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom are the essential tools for transforming the mind, their effectiveness is magnified exponentially when they are supported by the warmth and encouragement of a spiritual community. In the Buddhist tradition, this community is known as the Sangha, and it is considered so vital to the path of awakening that it is revered as the third of the three jewels, alongside the Buddha, the awakened teacher, and the Dharma, the teachings. The profound isolation and the belief that no one understands are core features of the depressive experience. The Sangha provides a living, breathing refutation of this painful illusion, offering a space of shared understanding, mutual support, and collective healing. The Buddha placed such a high value on spiritual friendship that he is said to have declared it to be the whole of the holy life. This stands in stark contrast to the hyper-individualism of modern society, which often leaves people feeling disconnected and alone, even when surrounded by others. A supportive community is not an optional accessory to the spiritual path. It is an essential component for protecting and nurturing mental health. The Sangha is the container in which the difficult work of healing can safely take place. The primary function of the Sangha is to counteract the profound sense of isolation that characterizes depression. When we are trapped in our own minds, our suffering can feel unique, shameful, and insurmountable. However, when we gather with others who are also committed to the path of awareness and compassion, and we share our struggles honestly, we make a profound discovery. We are not alone. Our pain is not a sign of our personal defectiveness, but is part of the universal human condition of dukkha. This realization that our suffering connects us to others rather than separating us from them is itself an incredibly powerful healing agent. It is the practical application of the principle of common humanity, a cornerstone of self-compassion. Within the context of a healthy Sangha, members provide invaluable peer support and a sense of accountability. In programs like Recovery Dharma, a Buddhist-based approach to addiction and mental health challenges, the community of peers is a central pillar of the recovery process. Being part of a group provides encouragement to maintain daily practice, a safe space to process difficulties that arise, and the opportunity to be of service to others, which is a powerful way to build self-worth and a sense of purpose. The community becomes a place to practice the arts of loving speech and deep, compassionate listening, skills that heal not only our relationships with others, but also our relationship with ourselves. On a deeper level, the Sangha is the living embodiment of the doctrine of interdependent origination, Paticca Samuppada. It is the place where the abstract philosophical understanding of our interconnectedness becomes a tangible, felt reality. We see directly that our well-being is inextricably linked to the well-being of those around us. The joy of one member can uplift the entire group. The struggle of another evokes the compassion of all. In this way, the community functions as a kind of externalized, supportive brain for the individual practitioner. In a state of depression, the brain's executive functions, located primarily in the prefrontal cortex, are often compromised. This leads to impaired emotional regulation, a tendency to get stuck in ruminative loops, and a loss of perspective. The individual is, in a sense, trapped in the reactive, emotional centers of the brain. A healthy Sangha can provide these missing regulatory functions externally. When we share our distorted, hopeless thoughts, a wise spiritual friend can gently offer a broader perspective, reminding us of the truth of impermanence. When our own well of self-compassion runs dry, the kindness and acceptance of the group can replenish it. When our motivation falters, the collective energy of the community can carry us forward. This process of social co-regulation has a direct calming effect on our nervous system. Hearing that others have faced similar struggles and have found their way through activates our sense of shared humanity and soothes the fear that we are uniquely and irreparably broken. The Sangha, therefore, is not merely a support group. It is a vital and active component of the practice itself, a collective crucible that holds and helps to regulate the individual's mind, providing the safety and strength needed for the profound work of healing and transformation. The profound teachings and transformative insights of the Buddhist path find their true power not in moments of peak experience on a meditation retreat, but in the way they are woven into the very fabric of our ordinary, everyday lives. The goal is not to add a series of demanding new tasks to a life that already feels overwhelming, but rather to infuse our existing daily activities with a new quality of awareness, compassion, and gratitude. This creates a sustainable practice that gradually and gently rewires our brains and hearts for joy and resilience. The key, as with any form of training, is consistency over intensity. Brief, regular moments of practice create more lasting biochemical and neurological changes than occasional, heroic efforts. What follows is a simple toolkit, a suggested rhythm for a day lived with intention, designed to integrate these ancient healing practices into a modern life. Morning, setting a grateful intention. The first moments of the day are a precious opportunity to set the trajectory for the hours to come. For many who struggle with depression, waking can be a moment of dread as the weight of the world rushes back into consciousness. We can consciously choose to interrupt this pattern before even getting out of bed, before the mind begins to race with the worries and to-do lists of the day. We can pause and connect with a simple, powerful intention. The Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh offers a beautiful gatha for this moment. Waking up this morning, I smile. 24 brand new hours are before me. I vow to live fully in each moment and to look at all beings with eyes of compassion. Simply reciting these words and allowing even a faint smile to touch the lips can begin to shift our orientation from one of dread to one of gentle gratitude for the simple gift of a new day. It is an acknowledgement that despite our struggles, we are alive, and where there is life, there is possibility. Throughout the day, mindful moments. The path of practice unfolds not just on the meditation cushion, but in every activity of our day. The aim is to dissolve the boundary between formal practice and real life, making every moment an opportunity for awareness. Mindful consumption. Meal times, which are often rushed and unconscious, can become profound moments of practice. Before eating, we can pause to recite, silently or aloud, the 5 contemplations. These contemplations remind us that our food is a gift from the entire universe and a result of the hard work of many beings, encouraging us to eat with gratitude and moderation and with a compassionate intention to nourish our bodies so that we may be of service to the world. Mindful walking. Anytime we are moving from one place to another, walking to the car, to the bus stop, or just to the kitchen, we can practice mindful walking. Instead of being lost in thought, we can bring our attention to the simple, physical sensation of our feet touching the earth. Each step can become a moment of grounding, a way of connecting with our body and the planet that supports us. Rain on the spot. Difficult emotions will inevitably arise during the day. A surge of anxiety, a pang of sadness, a flash of irritation. When these moments occur, we can apply the rain of self-compassion as a quick, in-the-moment intervention. We can pause for just 30 seconds to recognize what we are feeling, allow it to be there without resistance, gently investigate how it feels in the body, and nurture ourselves with a silent word of kindness or a hand on the heart. This simple practice can stop an emotional spiral in its tracks, preventing a passing mood from becoming a full-blown depressive episode. Evening, reflection and loving kindness. The end of the day offers a time for gentle reflection and the planting of wholesome seeds for the night's rest. Gratitude journal. A wealth of scientific research has confirmed the powerful benefits of a simple gratitude journal. Before sleep, take just a few minutes to write down 3 things from the day for which you are grateful. They do not need to be monumental. It could be the warmth of the sun, a kind word from a colleague, the taste of a cup of tea, or simply the fact that you made it through a difficult day. This practice actively trains the brain to scan for positives, counteracting the negativity bias that is so strong in depression. Studies have shown this simple act can increase happiness and decrease depressive symptoms, with effects lasting for months. Brief metta meditation. As a final act before sleep, we can offer phrases of loving kindness. Lying in bed, we can silently repeat the phrases, "May I be peaceful," "May I be happy," "May I be free from suffering," directing this warmth and kindness toward our own heart. We can then extend these wishes to our loved ones and to all beings who are also settling down for the night. This practice soothes the nervous system and concludes the day with an intention of boundless compassion. By weaving these small, simple practices into the existing rhythm of our days, the path of healing becomes not another burden, but a source of gentle, consistent nourishment. We are no longer just practicing mindfulness for 20 minutes in the morning. We are gradually, moment by moment, becoming more mindful, more compassionate, and more grateful people. The practice ceases to be something we do, and slowly, beautifully, becomes a part of who we are. Returning home to yourself. Our journey began in the stark and silent landscape of depression, a place of profound isolation and unspoken weight. We have traveled through the ancient wisdom of the East, guided by the compassionate diagnosis of a great physician who taught that our suffering, while real and deep, is not a sign of our brokenness, but a fundamental part of the shared human experience. We have seen how the insatiable thirst of craving, amplified by the pressures of our modern world, lies at the root of our discontent, and how the poisons of greed, aversion, and ignorance fuel a self-perpetuating cycle of pain. But we have also discovered that within this ancient wisdom lies a profound and practical path to liberation. We have learned that the very nature of reality, its constant, flowing impermanence, is not a threat to be feared, but the very reason that healing and change are always possible. We have found that the heavy, solid self that is the target of so much self-criticism and blame is, upon closer inspection, an illusion, and that in letting go of this painful burden, we find not emptiness, but a spacious and profound connection to all of life. We have been given the tools of this transformation. Mindfulness, the gentle anchor of the breath that brings us home to the present moment, allowing us to see our thoughts and feelings as passing clouds rather than an all-encompassing storm. Compassion, the warmth of our own heart that learns to meet our pain, not with judgment, but with a tender, nurturing embrace. And gratitude, the master key that unlocks the door to joy, a joy born not from getting what we want, but from appreciating the miracle of what we already have, rooted in the clear seeing of our radical interconnectedness with all that is. The ultimate aim of this path is not to become a different, better person, free from all pain and difficulty. The goal is simpler and far more profound. It is to come home to ourselves. It is a journey of letting go of our resistance to life as it is, of letting go of our painful stories about the past and our anxious expectations for the future, of letting go of the exhausting struggle to be someone other than who we are. In this letting go, we discover a quiet peace and a resilient joy that was there all along, obscured beneath the layers of our conditioning and fear. May you be gentle with yourself on this journey. May you remember, in moments of darkness, the simple yet profound teaching of the great Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh. Sometimes, my joy is the source of my smile. At other times, my smile is the source of my joy. This is an invitation to embody the peace you seek, even in the smallest of ways. It is a final, gentle act of self-compassion, a recognition that you have the power, in this very moment, to offer yourself a gesture of kindness. You can smile, not because the world is perfect, but because you are alive. And in that simple, courageous act, you may just find the beginning of your own inner joy. If this journey of transformation resonates with the path your heart longs to walk, I invite you to subscribe. Together, we will continue to explore the ancient wisdom that leads us back to our own inner light.